Welcome to Enago's webinar in collaboration with Ulatus, a global leader in professional translation services. I am Utkarsha Bhosle, content expert at Enago Academy, and together with my colleague and co-speaker for this webinar, John Gallagher, quality specialist at Ulatus, we will share some useful tricks and tips with authors to translate their manuscripts to English, ensuring the accurate grammar, tone, and style requirements. Before we begin, I would like to give you all a brief introduction about Enago. We are the world's leading author service provider, and our author-first, quality-first approach ensures that our authors receive only the best quality output and excellent user experience at all times. This unrelenting focus on authors' needs means that we never compromise on our quality systems and processes at any cost. All our services are designed keeping in mind the author's needs. Enago Academy is our author training platform that educates authors through several resources, including webinars as well as live workshop sessions. We also have an e-learning platform for researchers called Enago Learn, along with a live one-on-one consultation platform called Enago Consult. Enago offers world-class services for researchers at different stages of their research career as two-editor system English language editing service, academic and non-academic translation service, manuscript preparation service, and publication support service. The Enago promise guarantees that a manuscript edited by us will never be rejected based on poor language. On a rare occasion, if rejection occurs, we will take full responsibility for editing the paper for resubmission at no additional cost. Enago's comprehensive after-sales services will support you at every step of the way until your manuscript is published. They are designed to take care of every need from the time you receive your main services until you're published. Enago's research communication services are designed to help you effectively present your research data. In case you're interested in any of these services, feel free to email at webinars@enago.com. Briefly introducing Ulatus, it is a professional translation company that provides translation services in 50+ languages to enterprises across 125+ locales worldwide. It provides comprehensive translation services under an umbrella. Its services include manuscripts and book translations, editing and proofreading, video, website and marketing localization, globalized editing, 360-degree transcription, e-learning, and software and app solutions. Now, without any further delay, let's start with today's agenda.
Okay, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is today's agenda. Just take a quick read through, if you would. Okay, so basically today I'll be talking about some general principles of academic translation. We'll be looking at some examples and giving some practical points along with Utkarsha's contribution today. A lot of food for thought. So starting off, how translation helps researchers. And let's move to the next slide, thanks. Okay, how good translation can help researchers. Please take a moment to read through the points, thanks. Okay, so the researchers and reviewers and teachers involved in any given research field, we can think of these people as a language community, and they're a community of readers and writers because they share a body of set expectations about how material is to be presented and discussed. And these expectations can be extremely subtle and nuanced and exacting, as I'm sure we all know. These conventions are established and observed to demonstrate expertise. And basically that means that they're there to show that, you know, I belong in this language community. I belong in this discussion. I have a right to be in this discussion and participate in it. And so that's what our clients require from us as translators. The linguistic armor and the linguistic passport to take their ideas into another language context in a way that they can demonstrate that they belong in this community and in this discussion. So all professional translators build up a detailed understanding of the general translation issues involved in their particular language pair, of course. And above and beyond this, good academic translation is based on a foundation of specialized knowledge of the particular language community that you're working into, and the conventions of the particular field. So to get their for our clients to get their research papers accepted in English language journals, well, researchers from non-English backgrounds and communities, well, they absolutely need the services of specialist English translation services, you know, like us, for example. And we may touch on this again later, the English language dominance of academia, you know, for good or for ill, it's a brute fact that world academia is an English language dominated realm. And for us as a company, we pragmatically, we offer our services, you know, in the world as it is, not necessarily in the world as we might wish it to be, but that's where we're at, and more importantly, that's where our clients are at. It's very much an English language dominated area of human endeavor. Thank you. Okay. So the role of translators, what we can do in refining manuscripts. Just take a look through the image there, thanks, from the bottom left going around to the bottom right. Thanks. Are we good? Okay, so so competent academic translators are highly sensitive to specialist terminology in both of their languages. They're aware of how appropriate specific terminology is for the particular research field, and they're alert to terminology that is perhaps inconsistent or perhaps dated. And yeah, if we have a chance later, let's talk about that. They're aware of the differences in how arguments are presented in the source language and the target language. For example, Japanese can be less assertive than English, or things like that. They are sensitive to the flow of argument, how points are presented in the source language and the target language, and there are quite often quite important stylistic differences there. And so these many issues, they can be resolved in many different ways naturally, but translators will consistently contribute to the resolution of these issues as the people on the ground, the people at the front edge of what's happening with the translation. Okay, thanks. Let's take the next slide. Thank you. We will do a quick mention about human translations versus machine translations. Thanks very much. So yeah, human and machine translation differences. So you've got a short list there of pros, cons, comparing human and machine translation. Please take your time, take a look. And the point there on the right, the second one from the top, delivers precise results within the parameters of its developmental stage, because machine translation is very much a work in progress. It's progressing, you know, mightily, but it's still in progress. So from our client's point of view, you know, many institutions that they work for may view English translation as some kind of, you know, optional extra, yeah, something to be added on later, and they may not even, you know, allocate a budget for it. There might be no money for it, or they may not really understand the importance of specialist translation services and specialist editing services, and that leaves, you know, researchers in a difficult position. And some researchers in this position may, shall we say, misunderstand machine translation or free online translation services. They may misunderstand these as some kind of a solution to their problem, because, you know, they're for their speed, for their low cost, indeed zero cost in many cases. But with machine translation, unfortunately the quality of the output is almost always too low to, you know, in academic terms, it's too low to satisfy you know, a general review panel. Reviewers are going to look at it and reject it immediately. And indeed, most machine translated work will not even reach the review stage. It will be rejected before that. You know, editors don't want to annoy or vex their reviewers who work unpaid for this. However, as machine translation becomes more and more sophisticated, machine translation post-editing, MTPE, has become an increasingly viable option. And MTPE basically, you know, is you get a machine translated template, and on top of that you layer a bilingual language checker, and then on top of that you may layer you know, whatever specialist editing services you wish or are available. And excuse me. So this MTPE approach, it offers much of the speed and the cost effectiveness of pure machine translation, but, you know, the quality is better. You have machine translation, but with enhanced quality. However, of course, the thing is that a machine translated template, once it's in your hands, it presents bilingual checkers, and it presents later editors with all the same issues, all the same problems that we've discussed above. You know, of terminology, of consistency, of subject matter expertise. None of these things disappear just because you've put your text through a machine translation. And indeed, machine translation also presents the same issues that you find with human translations in terms of language pairs. So you're working from this language into that language. There will be characteristic issues and problems arising from machine translation in a kind of similar way to human translation, actually. You know, machine translation quite generally gives us issues of clarity, subject matter expertise, consistency, loss of nuance, all of these things. So it's certainly not a magic bullet. And you know, in terms of academic translation, we're a long way away from machine translation ever challenging human translation entirely. Okay, and so it's not a magic bullet at all. Okay, now let me return you to Karsha. Thanks very much. And the next slide, thanks.
So thank you so much, John, for this enlightening part of the session. So in recent years, researchers have witnessed dramatic changes in the science communications landscape. And since English is predominantly used as a knowledge dissemination language by high-impact academic journals, researchers from ESL regions, though add to the knowledge, but fail at adding to the literature. Hence, translation comes to their resort for sharing knowledge, information, and ideas across the world, as publishing in non-English journals will restrict researchers from imprinting their identity on the global map. Moreover, publishing in languages other than English hampers the academic bibliodiversity. Furthermore, several peer-reviewed non-English scholarly journals are excluded from prestigious journal indexes. Translating academic literature goes above and beyond publication barriers and bridges cultural gaps amongst different regions and helps in preserving literature for advancing research in the future. As we speak of academic translations, it can be broadly classified into 4 types. First, being the literary, second, being professional, third, being technical, and fourth, being administrative. The literary type of translation deals with translations of poems, plays, etc. It involves comprehensive and clear translation of the context, sound, and expressions of the source text. Next is professional translations, which includes translation of medical or legal documents and requires the translator to have subject matter expertise. Then is the technical translations, which includes translation of engineering documents, instruction manuals, etc. Along with subject expertise and technical knowledge, the translator must also be careful with the numeric data in terms of translating technical documents. Lastly, the administrative translations are also termed as the subtype of professional translations, which includes translation of management texts and documents. As we speak of the important role that translation plays in academia, we must understand the challenges faced during the process. There are 8 most common challenges in academic translations, as you all must be aware of. First, being the failure of understanding the context, translating cultural specific expressions, lexical semantic problems, formal standard language, translating idioms, rhetorical questions, sarcasms, etc., compound word translations, incorrect usage of keywords, and the most important one is grammar and punctuation errors. The first challenge that we talk about today is faced by translation, which is not being able to comprehend the source text. This is the primary need to be able to translate any document. If you cannot understand what's written in the source text, you'll not be able to translate it to the target language. Hence, comprehension of the source text and understanding it to the T is very important. Other challenge arises while translating culture-specific expressions, as cultural diversity is often reflected in writings by ESL authors. Next challenge in academic translations is lexical semantic problems. This is when there's difficulty in understanding instructions or conversations with words that may have 2 different meanings, such as homophones. Then comes the challenge of translating source text to English as the target language, whilst maintaining the target language's standard linguistic rules. Coming to the other four set of challenges faced in academic translations, another challenge is of translating region-specific idioms, expressions, sarcastic statements, or rhetorical questions from source text to English. Such expressions must be translated carefully without changing their intent or meaning. Following this is the translation challenge of translating compound words. For example, the word fireman is made up of two words, fire and man, which have different meanings individually and have a completely different meaning as a compound word. Another major challenge while translating is usage of incorrect keywords. As we know, the keywords volume may differ in each region. Therefore, word-for-word translation may not deliver exact keywords intensity or volume to efficiently work on the global platform. Finally, another crucial aspect is the difficulty in abiding by grammar and punctuation rules of the English language whilst conveying contextual meaning of the original language. So, as now we've acknowledged the challenges faced in academic translations, we must know how to avoid them to create error-free translated documents and manuscripts. Here, I shall be discussing a few tips and tricks to use in order to overcome these challenges. Okay, coming to the first challenge is the accurate comprehension of source text. To deal with the challenge of failing to understand the source text, a translator must firstly gain proficiency in the source text language. Furthermore, they must ensure factual correctness of the source text by referring the bibliography to avoid misinterpretation and consequently avoid mistranslation. In addition, the translator must analyze the source text and alter it by adding, deleting, or rearranging words and ideas to effectively communicate in the English language. Lastly, clarify your doubts if you have any, and do not translate in mere case of assumption in terms of gray areas. To overcome the challenge of translating culture-specific expressions, a translator must firstly display a complete command over both the source and the target language in terms of phrasing the sentences clearly, understanding the syntax, that is, how words and morphemes, which are smaller sentences, combine to form larger units such as phrases and sentences, and the etymology, that is, the origin of certain words. Secondly, the translator must avoid word-for-word translations of region-specific ideas or expressions. And finally, they must use local terms to accurately adapt the translated text to targeted culture. Now, coming to the other problem is dealing with lexical semantic problems. While dealing with lexical semantic problems, a translator must begin with referring to dictionaries, glossaries, subject experts, etc., to get a clear understanding of used words. Furthermore, exact meaning of sentences must be decoded to avoid using words in wrong content. Use descriptive words wherever applicable. More importantly, build a semantic map between words so that there is an interconnection and you are aware of the interconnection between the words that are related to specific themes and concepts. Here comes the major challenge, which is faced in academic translation, is of maintaining the formal standards of the target language. The challenges faced here are related to translating in either British or English language, that is the American English language, and other issues such as capitalization, spacing, contractions, typographical errors, etc. While translating from source text to English language, a translator must also be careful whether the text is to be translated in British English or American English. For instance, as we can see on the slide today, the use of serial commas in the British sentence is not incorporated, while it is in the American sentence in the statement absorbance spectra 1089, 1410, 1611, 2918, and 3226 centimeters inverse. However, in the American sentences, we see that there is an incorporation of a serial comma between the digit 2918 and the term and 3226 centimeters inverse. Likewise, there is another difference is between the spellings used by British English and the American English. In the example given on our slide, the typical thermal decomposition behavior and the one given in the American sentence style, the typical thermal decomposition behavior, we can see that the spelling of behavior, rather both correct, are different in both ways. Hence, we must understand that terms that are used in both the languages, in both the terms, are similar, yet not different from what the standards oblige. In addition, maintaining capitalization rules, for instance, laparoscopic versus open hepatectomy approach for regional hepatolithiasis. However, in the correct sentence, you would see that the term regional hepatolithiasis is not written in capital. Coming to the next problem is maintaining spacing issues. The first example that you may see is when the frequencies are mentioned, that is, the frequency of electric power is 50 by 60 hertz. And in the correct sentence, you may see that there is a difference between the unit of frequency and the quantity that is given. Likewise, we need to understand that such spacing issues are also not carried forwarded. Another challenge is of maintaining contractions. As you can see in the incorrect sentence as we have given in the example here, however, the findings weren't consistent with previous findings. Here, we understand that in academic writing, it is always better to be as unambiguous as we can. Therefore, we write the correct sentence as, however, the findings were not consistent with previous findings. Going forward, I would also like to mention the typographical errors mentioned here. Typographical errors are not just common in translation, in translation, but also while writing or creating new content. Thus, as you can see on the screen, both the examples of incorrect and correct sentences, I would like to take up the second example, that is, the conidia resting in the alveoli begin to grow and geminate, where geminate does not make any sense. However, the correct formation is the conidia resting in the alveoli begin to grow and germinate. Going forward, another major challenge is deciphering regional idioms, sarcastic statements, expressions, or rhetorical questions which cannot be translated by the literal definitions of the words. Hence, a translator must find an equivalent idiom or expression in English language without hampering the meaning or intent of the source text. If this is not possible, as a result, a translator must write an idiom in the target language with different words or sentences, structure, and complete it with a short explanation. Speaking of translating compound words, ensure that the overall meaning of the compound word is retained and that it is translated to its literal meaning. Verbatim of such words is not acceptable while translating. As we see here on the screen, the word butterfly is neither a fly nor a butter, though is made of two different words, butter and a fly. Another challenge is of using globally relevant keywords. As we know, regional keywords may not be effective in English, and some terms used in regional languages may be missing in the target language. A translator must identify keywords for the manuscripts or documents based on their volume on the global platform. Here, the literal translations of keywords may not be as impactful as it may be for the specific region. Moving forward to one of the most important challenges faced by translators are following the grammar rules. The challenge of abiding by the grammar rules of the English language is very critical. Given the trickiness of it, English grammar rules must be maintained and followed scrupulously. Learn to adopt deductive method whilst not skipping any relevant and important information and convey the exact meaning of the source text. Furthermore, avoid exaggeration and emphasize on the accuracy. However, you would notice that in case of exaggerating, there is a chance of you kind of misquoting or misleading the reader. Your best resort would be to use one of the most reliable online grammar checker tools, which is Trinka AI. As we all have heard, a comma can kill a man. Another challenge is following punctuation rules carefully. It is a crucial aspect that needs sincere attention while translating. Some key points to remember while using some of these regularly used punctuation marks are comma, use it to create a pause or to separate ideas or listed content in a sentence. Semicolon, use it to create a break between interconnected ideas. Colon, use it to connect two sentences thematically. Full stop, it is also called as a period, which is used to denote that the sentence has ended. And lastly is apostrophe, which is used to indicate ownership or missing letters or numbers. Finally, we speak of correct usage of transition words and phrases. To emphasize a contrast, use words such as however, nevertheless, although, even though, yet, despite, in spite of, in contrast, in comparison, while, whereas, on the other hand, on the contrary. To indicate cause for a reason, use words such as for, because, since, as. To compare data, use words such as similarly, likewise, similar to, both, and. And lastly, to indicate results or deliver inferences, use words such as a result, as a consequence of, therefore, thus, consequently, hence, owing to. So as we've understood the tricks and tips to overcome these common challenges in academic translation, my colleague and co-presenter John will take you through some relevant examples from original manuscript assignments.
Yeah, okay, thanks very much, Nikosha. Thanks indeed. Now we're going to take a look at some translations from various language pairs, well, from basically into English from various source languages. And I won't detain you too long with them. We'll just pick out, one or two from each, but please take a moment and just read through these edits of translations. And these edits are taking care mainly of translation issues only. We're not even looking at grammar, stuff like that in general. So this is from Japanese. Oh, sorry. Can we go back to the Japanese one a minute? Sorry. Thanks. Now this text, this translation has a couple of pretty critical issues, which I like to think of as reflexive errors that were edited, in the process. And I'm thinking there of, where you're sitting as a translator, and you can see the text, but your brain tells you, your mind tells you something a bit different, and you know, you think your mind knows better, but it doesn't. I hope you can see this reasonably well. In line 2 in the first paragraph at the start of July 2019 is actually at the end of July 2019 correctly, and it's a kind of, you know, reflexive error that you just jump to a conclusion, and that's why it's so important to go back and every paragraph, you know, look again, check again. These are, you know, constant hazards for human translators, this kind of reflexive thing. One more, just there on line 5, paragraph 1, the Tokyo area should have been the Tokai area. It's another reflexive mistake, just jumping to a conclusion. I presume the translator lives in Tokyo and is just so used to seeing that character, and then it's east, it's Tokyo. So these are constant hazards, and they produce gross errors and serious problems that we can't do unless we, you know, are very vigilant on ourselves. Okay, thanks so much. Next one, thank you. If you would, the Chinese example, thank you. We'll just pick out one point here. The literature publishing language was limited to English. Is that down on? Where is it? Yeah, line 6 and 7. This is a phrase skip by the translator, corrected in the checking. This kind of skip again is a constant hazard for the human translator. We must be always vigilant about it. And again, these are issues before we even come to academic translation as such. Thanks. The next one, if you would, thank you. Korean, yes. So there was quite a lot of discussion in this paper on the place name. This is a study set in a place called Goyang in Korea, which would be known in Korean as Goyangsi. And we would have the same thing in Japanese and in Chinese as well. And so we have an issue of what we call verity in-house. It would be like, you know, almost like localization. What do we do with this? Apparently the official name of this place is Goyangsi, as per the Korean, but that's not really going to fly with a more general English readership. This isn't Korean studies as such, is it? So the translator amended this to City of Goyang, and yet, however, when we go online, when we go onto the city's website and so on, we see that in fact the preferred English phrasing, though not the official name, but the preferred English phrasing is Goyang City, not City of Goyang, and that's one of the kind of details that we can help our clients with in terms of credibility. Thank you. Yeah, we'll take the Spanish one last, will we? Thanks so much. So about heritage assets, heritage industry, and we're coming in from a language that's much closer to English, and yet we can see. Let me pick out one thing. Where is it? The second paragraph, end of the first line and second line. So the excuse me, the translator has chosen the phrase material and immaterial heritage. Looks fine, right? It looks fine to me until we realize that the normal way, the standard way that this concept is discussed in English academia is tangible and intangible heritage. It's a small difference, but it's a big difference in subject matter expertise and in the client's credibility and their membership of a language community that will afford them with trust and credibility. So that was I think a quite crucial, looks small but quite a crucial edit in helping our client. Okay, thank you so much. We'll wrap up this part with some best practice pointers, quite pragmatic, as we discussed before in talking about client expectations. So when a job comes into you as a translator, that you clearly establish the academic discipline and field. There will be a subject allocation with email, for example, but with your own eyes, you're the best person to judge as well. Going down, establish your suitability for the assignment. Okay, this is ballpark for me. I know this subject area. I belong to this language community, but are there any red flags? Maybe I should give this to someone else with a bit more expertise in this particular part of this field that I belong to. So know your limits. It's good to do that and be cautious in accepting assignments. Going down, clearly establish the source target key terminology. You establish it in the original text, and you nail it down in the target text, English text, whatever. If you're working on a platform like MemSource, it'll help do it automatically. If you're working in Word, you can do it mechanically by find and replace. But it should be there very clearly in your mind and very consistently throughout the text. Then you can go and do the rest of the text and translate it around that. So ensure that the key terminology is consistently in place. Yeah, thanks. Check for omissions, etc. Rolling, reflexive errors, skips, clarity issues. All of this, is best done, I think, on a rolling basis, on a paragraph basis. When you reach the end of the assignment, your mind is just too tired, really, to go back and wade through it all again. So, just when you finish a paragraph, take a deep breath, scan through it again. Best way. Very important point, flag all uncertain points for a project manager's, quality team, editor's, client. Okay, flag them, don't try to conceal them. That's the most helpful thing for us all. Flag quoted material. Either way, are we sourcing existing translations? That needs to be marked, or directly back translated. That needs to be flagged. And finally, special attention must be paid to keywords, footnotes, and references, all of which are full of potential pitfalls. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John, for sharing such useful information. We hope our attendees have certainly gained a lot of critical information from these sessions.